Tired of spending so much time and money on vehicle maintenance and repairs? Make this October Cartober when you donate a car, truck, RV, or boat to KPBS. Go online to kpbs.org/car to make your donation. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Lawrence K. Jackson. It's Thursday, October 16th. El Cajon has no plans to stop sharing license plate data. More on that next, but first, the headlines. The city of Lemon Grove and the Regional Task Force on Homelessness closed a long-standing encampment. It sat along North Avenue in Lemon Grove and was one of several along the 94. A nearly $8.5 million grant from the state is being used to connect unhoused residents to permanent housing and supportive services. More than 30 people previously experiencing homelessness at the encampment are now in housing with case managers and ongoing support. The project's funding is able to sustain housing and services for residents for 2 years. La Mesa is the next city in the county making changes to their paid parking system. This follows a recent city council meeting. Starting on July 1st, all meters in downtown La Mesa will make the jump up to $1.50 per hour. That's up from 75 or 50 cents depending on the location. The uptick in rate would contribute to over $250,000 in added revenue, according to city staff. The money will go to the city's parking fund, which maintains the parking district's upkeep as well as holiday decorations. Meters will continue to operate at the same hours of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily, except Sundays and holidays. Today, 10/16, is International Shakeout Day. People around the globe will take part in earthquake safety drills at 10:16 a.m. their time. This means to drop, cover, and hold on. And today, Cal OES will be at the San Diego Waterfront Park with their earthquake simulator. You can check it out between 6 a.m. and 1 p.m. This podcast goes live every morning at 5 a.m., but in case you're listening after 10:16 a.m. today, do not worry. You can register your shakeout drill for any day of the year at shakeout.org. From KPBS, you're listening to San Diego News Now. Stay with me for more of the local news you need.
Hello, this is Dr. Michael Lalich, Medical Director and Chief of Staff for Kaiser Permanente San Diego. For more than 50 years, San Diegans have entrusted their health care to us. Our care and coverage connect to provide medical care tailored to each member. With our integrated network of primary and specialty care, we work together using evidence-based medicine to help deliver positive results. We believe in a healthy and engaged life with good beginnings and dignified endings. We believe that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness requires total health, including equal access to high-quality, affordable health care. At Kaiser Permanente, our cause is health. Our passion is service. We work to help make lives better. To learn more, visit kp.org/San Diego.
Despite some public backlash and a lawsuit from State Attorney General Rob Bonta, El Cajon City Council members have no plans to stop sharing license plate surveillance data with out-of-state police departments. Reporter Gustavo Solis brings us this update from Tuesday's City Council meeting.
A group of protesters made their voices heard before the City Council's regular meeting even started.
Ice out of El Cajon!
Ice out of El Cajon!
Ice out of El Cajon!
The KPBS investigation found that El Cajon surveillance data has been included in hundreds of immigration-related searches nationwide. Yet, council members made it clear on Tuesday that the city will continue to share this data outside of California. Councilman Steve Goebel was among those defending the practice, saying this technology has been used to recover stolen vehicles, and it could be used to solve other crimes like child kidnappings.
For that reason, for the protection of children, we will continue to make that data available to law enforcement officials for investigative purposes.
Earlier this month, Attorney General Rob Bonta asked a judge to declare El Cajon's data sharing practice illegal. Mayor Bill Wells says the city will not stop sharing the data until the judge orders them to do so. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
The federal government shutdown has entered its third week. The Federal Reserve Bank says about 46,000 San Diego civilians are employed by the federal government, and there are 100,000 members of the military in San Diego. To help ease financial pressure on them, Jewish Family Service is hosting a weekly drive-through food distribution. Tom Stewart from JFS of San Diego says each family will receive 40 pounds of fresh produce and shelf-stable food every Wednesday for as long as the shutdown continues.
We took our learning from both the first shutdown in 2018 and then all of our support during the COVID-19 pandemic and realized that we could partner with the Jacobs and Cushman San Diego Food Bank and quickly get an emergency food distribution up and going for our neighbors that are needing a little extra support.
Those in need do not need to register. The distributions are happening from 4 to 6 p.m. on Wednesdays at the Jewish Family Service campus on Balboa Ave in Kearny Mesa. Governor Gavin Newsom isn't supporting a ban on glitter in makeup. Reporter Tammy Murga has more on why he vetoed a local lawmaker's bill.
In a message to lawmakers, Governor Newsom says banning plastic glitter and microbeads would have unintended consequences. He says it could lead to, quote, a prohibition on biodegradable or natural alternatives. Encinitas Assemblymember Tasha Berner wrote the bill. She says it grew out of concerns raised by environmental groups that these tiny plastics end up in our bodies. Berner said Newsom's decision was a huge shock.
I'm deeply disappointed that the governor vetoed AB 823. We worked really, really hard to balance that tension between the environment and protecting public health with feedback from the industry. And that's why there was no opposition.
She says the bill would have built on an existing state ban on microbeads in products like soaps and face washes. These tiny pieces of plastic don't break down easily and can end up in drinking water supplies, food sources, and human tissue. Berner says she will regroup with sponsors to see if there's a better time for the bill. Tammy Murga, KPBS News.
There's not much question that more homes need to be built in San Diego County. North reporter Alexander Wen says a developer plans to sue the city of Del Mar to build more housing there.
The project is called Seaside Ridge, and it's been stuck in legal maneuvering since 2022. Del Mar Mayor Terry Gasolin says the application was missing key environmental reports.
The planning department had determined that it was not complete because it lacked certain materials that were needed in order to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, and the Coastal Act.
We've submitted everything that we believe is required under the Builder's Remedy Law. We are in full compliance with the application.
That's Darren Pudgel, spokesperson for Seaside Ridge. A builder's remedy allows a developer to bypass local zoning laws to build a housing project with an affordable housing component. Seaside Ridge appealed to the city council, which denied the appeal last month. Seaside Ridge now plans to file a lawsuit. Pudgel says they have 90 days to do so. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
California is going to take a closer look at what it would take to bring a university to Chula Vista. Reporter Corey Suzuki says that's been a decades-long dream for local officials.
On Monday, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill creating a new state task force that'll examine what it would take to build out a public university campus in Chula Vista. The task force will include representatives from UC San Diego, SDSU, and Southwestern College. It'll also include officials from the city and the Sweetwater Union High School District.
It's an acknowledgement that we have a college desert where opportunities are not being provided to families and students.
David Alvarez is a Democratic Assembly member from Chula Vista. He says he authored the bill because there's a lack of higher education access in the South Bay. Alvarez says the state will look for ways to fund construction and operation of the campus and consider legislative changes that might make it easier for the university systems to work together.
That's what the task force is asked to do. Look at what are the types of programs that we know we need to offer in this region and what barriers exist in current state law that would require legislative fixes.
The task force will start meeting next summer and will report back in 2027. In Chula Vista, Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
San Diego Unified wants to see more students graduate prepared for college or a career. District leaders hope a new schedule will help get them there. At most high schools in the district, students take 4 classes one semester and 4 other classes the next semester for a total of 8 classes. Other schools have 6 periods all year. Tuesday, the school board voted to switch Mira Mesa, Madison, and Canyon Hills high schools from 6 classes a year to 8. Jeff Sabins is principal of Mira Mesa High School. He says taking fewer classes in each semester will help reduce stress as students plan for college applications.
Our kids are stressing themselves out in a major way to try to be competitive to get into these schools. So they're taking 5 college classes or 5 AP classes mixed in with a college class. And some of the kids are still in band and athletics while they're doing that.
The school's new schedules will start next year. There's a big change at the Registrar of Voters that could make it easier to put things on the ballot. For our Why It Matters segment, Voice of San Diego CEO Scott Lewis says it's a very big deal.
For decades, the registrar has had very unforgiving rules about signatures. Those signatures are how groups put measures on the ballot. But if someone signing spelled their street name wrong or even abbreviated it in an unacceptable way, the registrar would throw out their signature. Not anymore. Now, the registrar has quietly updated its guidance to employees who review those signatures, and that comes after a court ruling in May. This is a significant change. There are lawsuits right now over La Jolla's effort to leave the city of San Diego, and this change could impact that. The Association for the City of La Jolla filed a motion arguing that the city of San Diego was trying to suppress its freedom of speech with a frivolous lawsuit that is unlikely to prevail. That's a hearing coming up later this month. So here's why it matters. It will make initiatives easier to qualify. So many initiatives with millions of dollars behind them in San Diego have failed over the last 20 years. We don't know now how many of those failed because they were incompetent or whether voters' will took a back seat to the rules the registrar has now thrown out. I'm Scott Lewis for Voice of San Diego, and that's why it matters.
There's a push these days to inject political discourse with a heavy dose of civility. Best-selling author and social commentator Roxane Gay calls that a pipe dream. She spoke recently with Amita Sharma about why.
Roxane, you write that civility, this idea that there is a perfect, polite way to communicate about sociopolitical differences is a fantasy. Why is it a fantasy?
It's a fantasy because people are human. And when we are passionate about certain things, when we are committed to our beliefs, the idea that it's always going to be easy to talk about them and that it's always going to be a well-mannered exchange of ideas is really just that, a fantasy. It's this idea that we can disagree and there can be friction, but we don't have to get uncomfortable. And history has shown time and time again that there are certain sociopolitical disagreements that we simply cannot overcome with just debate. And it's really important to acknowledge that. It's really counterproductive to insist on civility. And, a lot of times when I talk about this, people tend to misinterpret and suggest that I'm advocating for violence. And instead, what I'm saying is that we don't get to put strictures on how these kinds of discourses take place. And we have to create space for uncomfortable conversations.
Well, I think the natural corollary to what you just said is that people probably say, well, look, if you don't have civility, then what are the prospects for bridging this divide between the people on the left, the right?
I am not sure how we bridge those divides because some of these divides are so fundamental when we're talking about issues of race and gender and the freedom to love who we want to love. How are we supposed to be civil when we're defending our lives and our very right to be? And so I hope that there are ways that we can have productive conversations about this, but anytime you have to slice away parts of yourself and compromise on your identity in order to create some sort of bridge between political differences, then you're not actually having a productive conversation. You're not actually creating change. What you're doing is capitulating. And we should not have to capitulate who we are just to satisfy people who are invested in bigotry.
There is talk of civil war in this country with a frequency and language I've never before heard in my lifetime. As you said, people think, well, if you don't have civility, then don't we run the risk of more political violence? Expand on that a little bit more.
Political violence has always been among us. Police shootings of unarmed civilians, that's political violence. So we can't pretend that it's a new phenomenon. But I do believe that we're seeing it with alarming frequency now. People are becoming a lot more comfortable making threats. I teach at Rutgers, and a professor there, a history professor, recently left the country with his family because a campus organization targeted his family and he was receiving death threats. And so, those same people call for civility while running people out of town for having different political ideas. And so we do need to be vigilant, and we have to do everything humanly possible to avoid political violence on any side because there's no justification for it ever. But the Civil War was one of the worst conflicts in American history. And while there's a lot of talk about it, I don't think we're anywhere near close to it. I think people lack the language and sometimes lack the critical capacity to talk about overwhelming discord. And they immediately go to war, which is something that, while painful to imagine, is tangible. We know what war is. We've seen it. And so I think that's why people reach for that. But I do not think we're there yet. And I hope I'm right.
That was author and social commentator Roxane Gay speaking with reporter Amita Sharma. That is it for today's podcast. As always, you can find more San Diego news online at kpbs.org. I'm Lawrence K. Jackson. Thanks for listening and subscribing and supporting public media. Have a great day.
KPBS On Demand is supported by Paint Care, offering households and businesses in California more than 800 leftover paint drop-off sites for recycling. Quantities of 100-plus gallons of paint may qualify for a large volume pickup. Learn more at paintcare.org.